let me introduce our next speaker from our main sponsor, Wordsmith AI, Ross McNair. Ross.
Thank you very much. Let me check if this is working. I'm not sure if we need to toggle it over. 1 second, the irony of there being a technical problem here.
I can help you.
No, it's all good. Okay, continue to unlock it. Okay, well, hopefully you have not had too much about AI in the past couple of months, because you've got 15 minutes where I'm hopefully going to break it down and cut through some of the noise. So let me see if this is now working. My name is Ross. I'm the CEO at Wordsmith. I actually qualified as a lawyer here in Scotland. I went up to university in Aberdeen. I qualified just around the corner at Gillespie MacAndrew. After that, I took a unconventional turn and moved into software engineering. I worked at a variety of different tech companies where I was a CTO at a few of them. And then about a year ago, I came back to Scotland, joined forces with a bunch of lawyers I was really, really keen to work with, and we've been building Wordsmith AI. Wordsmith is based down in the California of the North, which is the shore in Leith. We're quite proud that we're building this here in Scotland. We know that building a sort of a thriving tech ecosystem is quite hard, and we think that just throwing in and just trying to build it in a place actually where quite a number of interesting companies have started. Skyscanner actually started about 200 meters behind where this photo was taken. We're quite passionate about being part of doing this from here in Scotland. As part of that, we've attracted some of the best investors in the world. So Index and General Catalyst finance people like Stripe and Airbnb. We service international teams, major in-house teams, big law firms. And the last year has been good traction. What I am going to talk us through today, when my clicker starts to play ball, is hopefully get rid of some of the theory, get rid of sort of the abstract discussions that sort of continually happen, and give you folks some genuine applied use cases that we have seen huge impact with, and we know that people are getting a lot of help from. And then hopefully also just talk through a little bit about what this means for the legal profession. Because every time this comes up as a topic, people are curious. Like, am I going to lose my job? Is a lawyer going to be completely replaced by some computer? The cheat code is no, not by a long way. So why is this such a zeitgeist? Why is this something at the moment that people are so engaged with? Well, it kind of actually comes down to this, that 2 years ago, was when AI arrived in the public awareness. So before this, it had been sitting inside Facebook and Google behind the scenes. In 5 days, ChatGPT got the same traction that it took Netflix 3.5 years to get. To this day, it's still being used. Again, it's growing just as quickly. It's being used hundreds, millions of times a day, and there's genuine, repeatable utility for millions of people around the world from this. I'm going to need to get better at doing that 1 second before I want to go on to the next one. Cool. So for us in the legal profession, this isn't actually the first time that we've had productivity gains arrive. This was I'm sure many of you are deeply familiar, this is a Satine title. We've moved our own journey as a profession through these advancements of the land register or even the word processor arriving. And each time, the interesting thing as these productivity gains have come is that actually, if you look back to the 1960s to now, the per capita number of lawyers has doubled. So I kind of think about the legal profession or access to justice, kind of like mobile internet. The more available you make it, the easier it is for people to consume the services that we produce, the more they want it. And if you think about, to strip out all the noise about AI, it's just another line, or at least the first versions, many little lines on this, of more productivity gains that we can get rid of mundane stuff. That said, there have been some pretty big changes. One of the major changes that many of you today will be working in in-house teams. That wasn't the case, or at least not the same percentage of us were doing that 50, 60 years ago. That is a big shift because specifically when you're in-house, you have a completely different set of stakeholders and pressures and communications, and there's a different demand on efficiency. So a big bit of our service, as much as catering for all lawyers, is we have some specific modules that help with that. And often, IT actually just doesn't help. I feel a little bit sorry for these folks, the easy editor. I just got this off Google, but this is a kind of an indicative, I want to convert a document, and then I get hit with this in my face. The number of times when I was training and I heard partners openly throwing profanities at their desktops, it's not always easy to use the tech that we supposedly think will help us. And one of the big step changes that's going to come with AI actually is not really just about doing different things. It's about making technology a lot more accessible. So what I'm going to give you over the next 5-10 minutes is an overview of some of the tools that the next generation of lawyers are going to find as ubiquitous as the word processor is for everybody here today. To get to that, I'm going to take you on a journey through 3 steps. So the first, I'm just going to talk a little bit about level 1 AI awareness, which is some of the general productivity tools that people are using millions of times a day, conversions and analysis, etc. Then we'll do a little bit on what we call assistants. You'll hear this terminology used frequently, and I'm just going to try and give you some applied examples, so when people say these things, you know what they're talking about. Then we'll talk a bit about assistants, and how people are using that in research and drafting. And then finally, we'll go on to a more advanced thing, which is sort of emerging now, which are AI agents, and how those can help stitch together multiple different steps. Okay, so the first one, level 1, simple practical use cases and savings. Now, the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you a side-by-side of what it looks like manually to go through and extract some key or interesting bits of data from a 200-page service agreement. And alongside, you'll see what AI is helping lawyers today do. So on your left-hand side, you'll see the manual approach. I'm going to start just by skimming it through. We're just going to get a little bit familiar. On the right, we've dropped in the agreement. We've asked it to go and extract a few bits of information. It's taking that in real time, analyzing that 200-page agreement, sticking it in a table, and for the eagle-eyed amongst you, you'll notice that there are small citations that sit within that. One of the problems with things like ChatGPT is sometimes they can hallucinate and make stuff up. Legal AI is designed to be much more grounded. So you can see there, you click on it, it will open up the source document and take you to exactly where it is finding its information. So AI for lawyers and AI for everybody else has 2 completely different requirements. We need it to be secure so we can put confidential information in, and we need it to be grounded in fact so that we can understand what it's saying and why. Next, I'm going to take something that I know I had to do thousands of times, and I'm sure many people here have to do on a daily basis, but these are the kind of mundane, routine activities that frankly, we're not being paid for, we're not getting any credit for, and AI can strip out of our day-to-day. So here, I'm taking a photo of a handwritten file note from our GC and dropping it in on the one side, left or right. The other side, I'm taking a dictation and dropping that in. So AI is multimodal, which means it doesn't just understand text. You can also understand images, and you can understand spoken things. So here, it's transcribing that text, and with our platform, we can convert that into Word documents for you effortlessly. And it's taking that and just outputting it in a nice, simple way. So it's just allowing you to take unstructured into structured data. Now we'll move on to sort of level 2, some of the assistants. So here, I'm going to take a use case that in-house you'll do many, many times. In private practice, maybe repeatedly drafting the same email, something like an engagement letter. So what has happened here, we've forwarded an email in, a chain of maybe 50 backwards and forwards. AI is great at understanding the key facts from that, so it summarizes. We're then telling the AI from that, please use this template and draft an engagement letter. Now, I was talking to a few partners earlier, and they were saying the number of people that don't issue these because which I shouldn't be saying at a Law Society event, but you just never get round to because there's friction or a delay. AI just removes that, allows you to instantly pull the facts and then recombine them into this isn't doing reasoning, this is doing administrative stuff. And then we have level 3. So this is the emerging stuff that people are beginning to get into now. We've been working on this very heavily at Wordsmith for a while. A lot of our engineers are ex-Meta from the London team. And here what we're doing is stitching together lots of different steps to create quite magical outcomes that we can then review. So a key component of all of this is that you have a lawyer that is sitting there that is starting to become the editor rather than the original author. So here, we're going to take a basic agreement or a contract. We're going to take a look at it. We're going to do a little bit of pre-configured analysis, and we're going to get some markup at the end. So for example, if you come and have a look at the Wordsmith stand, we've done this with a standard Scottish lease. There are hundreds of playbooks that we have a team of real lawyers teaching it how to think about these concepts. But here, you'll see taking an agreement in. I mean, this is not complicated for anybody in the team to do. You drop it in, and now it just kicks off. It works out the agreement type, and it just starts running through the concepts it needs to have a look at. And then it puts a nice language interface over the top. So if you need to understand something, it will explain to you in written word, rather than you needing to go into menu 54 to try and get some insight. So you can click through the concepts, you can have a look. And then if you look at the top right-hand side, there's a great big blue button. So one of the elements that we've weaved together with our agents is that you can export the insights straight into a marked up Word document, which we'll do now. And this gives you a track-changed first pass that a solicitor can have a look at. This is not stuff that you would use and send straight to clients. This is a trainee that just throws it out, gives you something that you can start with so that you can start to become the editor rather than the author. So what are the key takeaways that I want everybody to hopefully extract from this today? Number one is that AI is basically a language interface. And they are way, way, way simpler to use than trying to find your way through a big menu on a Windows machine. 2, consolidating a bunch of different tools into one is cheaper. You don't need 95% of the functionality in lots of different products. You need 1 or 2 things. You need to be able to convert a doc, and you don't need those 52 checks. So just taking the little bit that lawyers need, bundling them in, saves a ton of cost. And 3, whether you are in-house or you are private practice, speed wins. And I guess this puts it, which one of these would you prefer? So when people get worried or scared about what AI might or might not bring, would you prefer to just drop a doc in and ask it to convert it, or would you prefer to tackle the monstrous configuration menu? Harris, one of my colleagues, is with me today. We've got a little stand over there. We also have a website, wordsmith.ai. It's actually free if you want to go and have a try. Let's go onto the pricing page. Incredibly transparent. We're quite into spending time, particularly with people in the local market that we live in and we work in. So we are incredibly open to working very closely with anybody who's interested in this. So do reach out. We'll meet you face to face. We're not on the far side of the world. And anyway, hopefully that was kind of helpful. So thank you.
Brilliant, Ross. Now, I'll maybe just ask Ross a couple of questions, but please jump onto Slido and put any questions or comments you'd like me to put to Ross. And if you're in the room and would like to ask a question, just stick your hand up and we'll get the microphone to you. Is there anyone initially that wants to ask a question? Anyone? Okay. Well, feel free to put it on Slido. In the meantime...
it's always the first one that someone's got to break the ice.
Yes, I know. I'll break the ice. It's kind of my job. So you're talking about making the technology more grounded. how do you make sure it's grounded? Because I was doing a conference last week and they were talking about rogue AI and how a chatbot had started to swear at customers.
Oh, really?
It was some travel website and they'd had to kind of take it down because the customers, I mean, the chatbot was basically telling people to F off.
Yeah, they do that.
And I hadn't heard this expression before, the hallucinates.
Oh, I thought you were saying the other expression. I was like,
Oh, I heard all that. So how can you make sure that, how do you keep it grounded? What does that mean?
I don't know. The way I think about it is, how do you make sure that you don't make a spelling mistake in Word? You check it. Like, this stuff is not meant to be client-facing, or at least I don't think it is. Like, I don't think that you should be, and I would never expose this stuff raw to clients. I would always, whether it is the people consuming my service in-house or in private practice, that's part of the lawyer's future role, is to edit and enrich. So how do we make sure you don't make mistakes in Word? You check it. I think the ultimate test is, with this, do you provide better service quicker, and does it cost you less? And if it meets those three criteria, it's a good thing. And I think the problem with AI for the last year or so is that there have been so few applied use cases that people have got very into sort of the theoretical. And actually, when you bring it down to what it's actually good at today, the use cases are small, they're practical, they're utilities. It's not, go and work out like the future direction of Scotland,
Yeah, and you're saying that this doesn't go straight, the technology doesn't go straight to the client.
No way.
The lawyers edit it. But how long before it does just go straight to the client before you think, God, this is going to save us so much time? Is that not inevitably what's going to happen? Inevitable what's going to happen?
Well, I think it's actually, I was having a wonderful conversation with a lady here who's researching at the ethics of AI. And I think that actually, anybody who's trained in Scotland, that a lot of our legal system here is grounded on like the principles and the jurisprudence requires a lot of human judgment that sits behind that. We don't just have a list of 400 rules that you can have every single situation outlined. And I think even in a situation where AI, let's say it was to get there and be very accurate, removing human judgment is a moral point that we would never go near. Like, I would never be comfortable having anything. Human judgment is the very point of our service, and I think actually in a weird way that defends it way more than other types of work that don't have a necessity for the human input beyond just administrative.
Right, we're getting lots of questions here. So this is from Stephen.
Let's do it, Stephen.
Stephen, you?
No, I don't know, but I'm glad he's broken the ice. Thank you, Stephen.
Right, so are the legal jobs of the future client-facing or teaching the AI tool?
Well, I think the future client-facing jobs involve learning how to prompt and teach the AI. So it's not even teaching, like it's learning how to sort of instruct one of these services where you don't have a menu, which is a better way to think about it. You just have to be more explicit in what you're asking for. And I think in the same way that we went through a bit of a curve where people had to, I don't know if you remember that we used to have, I remember at school getting trained on Word in my, this is how you do highlighting and bold. We'll have some of that basic usability stuff that everybody needs to know. But I don't think that structurally AI will be client-facing or should. And I think that every lawyer is in some way, shape or form going to find that using it is going to keep them, up with the races.
Okay. Someone else is asking, is there a limit of word count that the system can manage, and do you need to split files? It's quite a specific question.
I love it, yes. So yes, there are limits. You can put huge documents in. I think every sort of 3 or 4 months at the moment, the underlying services are improving so quickly, those limits are quickly becoming irrelevant for the vast majority. So when this journey started 24 months ago, putting in a 3-page document was challenging. Now you can effortlessly put 300 in. Within a year, it'll be 3,000. So very quickly, it's not a problem that most people face in practical terms.
Does the tool cover multiple jurisdictions?
So look, one of the things that we've focused very much on is staying away from the reasoning that lawyers do. So we tend to be quite jurisdiction, ambiguous. That said, obviously, because of our geographic focus, we actually have, in the places that we do put legal content, weirdly, we're very tailored to the Scottish market. We have some of the lawyers I used to work with at Gillespie McAndrew, one of the retired ones, sitting down in the office building lease checks and doing things like this. So we're very localized to here.
This is an interesting one. Is there a risk that clients will use AI to do their own legal work?
I think that there is absolutely a risk, and not even a risk, but it's an evolution that clients are going to start to know that some of this stuff can be done themselves. So they are absolutely going to devalue you doing it. So if you are doing things today and generating revenue off services that clients could do it at a very low marginal cost, that is probably a service that you are not going to be able to monetize well in 18, 24 months' time. So reconfiguring your service footprint to be on the places where you can add massive value, I think is one of the ways that you can protect future revenue. Mm-hmm. And if you're charging clients for a lot of basic drafting of agreements and stuff like this, they're not going to be happy with that. A really weird thing, actually, when you look at the expectations versus the adoption of AI, there is a way bigger expectation on cost reduction from corporate, like sort of in-house lawyers when they're looking at private practice than there is adoption in private practice. So I think there's a bit of confusion at the moment as to how much of an impact it's going to have.
Mm-hmm. I suppose we've seen a little bit of this already, haven't we? That people you can do a will online, can't you?
Yeah.
There's some stuff that already people can do themselves, but at the end of the day, people prefer to go to a lawyer and see someone face to face.
I mean, there's been document banks forever where somebody can go and like what you're paying for is the human judgment.
Yeah.
I think that's the key, right? Like you go to a lawyer but I think people, and as I showed with that graph, people will come to lawyers more when they are just able to get hold of the one small thing that they want, rather than having to pay for all the stuff that they don't want.
Yeah. Do you think the use of AI will reduce the level of exploring legal options / creative solution generation?
I think that's an interesting question. I think that if you remember that first example that I showed where it sort of extracts some information and then it allows you to jump around, I use AI hundreds and hundreds of times a day in everything that I do. So everything I'm going through, I use it to quickly reference and find things. I find that actually hugely improves my ultimate output because I'm able to factor 10 times as much information in to whatever solution I want to go towards. And I don't think opening and closing documents is creative time. Mm-hmm. I think taking the relevant information and thinking is creativity, and that is our job.
You mentioned that you have a team of lawyers training the AI. What does that entail practically? Are they just correcting it on its output until it's correct?
Yeah, so look, one of the risks, I guess, of using open internet AI is often when you put information in, one of the ways that they generate revenue is they kind of train on that and they use it to improve their service. Because of the market that we're in, we absolutely don't do that. Mm-hmm. So we don't use that. You can't take a confidential document and then use that to improve your service and have it pop up for another client, which means that to improve the quality of our AI, we have to find other ways to achieve that outcome. One of those ways is that we have a number of lawyers who sit there and evaluate the output. They put additional instructions in. They find better content and sources when it's looking for answers. They say, ignore these, point at this. And we do a lot of that with real lawyers so that we have a small amount of really high quality data that isn't our client data. Mm-hmm.
Let's try and squeeze in just a couple more questions. These two are kind of related. Is there a risk of AI taking away key skills of a lawyer, especially young lawyers? And someone else asks, how do we ensure that students learn key skills, e.g. reading cases, etc., and AI doesn't become the norm for those in education?
Well, I think that the meritocracy of what the system produces is the check against that. So if it's going to make you a better lawyer, and there are ways that work will concentrate in the better lawyers, that is the check, right? Trying to police the fact, like exactly what tool or service they use in the process. You know, I would police the outcome rather than the method. Mm-hmm. And I think that the way to stop people from becoming lazy in your firm is exactly the same way that you're doing it right now, which is police the outcome. If they produce rubbish with it, run a meritocracy, don't focus on the process.
Okay, and one last one. Is using Wordsmith the only way to ensure confidentiality of private information, or can GPT be used in a safe way?
I don't know the details of all the different services that they do and don't have. I know that the global versions do train on people's data. I know that our approach is that we don't, as a matter of course. We have a great big button on the front page of our site which says, this is in black and white terms what we do and don't do with your data.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of unambiguous for us.
Okay, we've run out of time, but just maybe leave the audience with one last thought. I think a lot of people are quite kind of fearful of AI and what it means for jobs, but do you essentially think it's just going to make life much easier for lawyers? It's going to be a wonderful tool. It's not going to put lots of people out of work like it's going to journalists, probably.
I think people are afraid of ambiguity, which is why I think basic understanding and education of the use cases that it is going to be used for. I've found nearly everybody I sit down with and show those to, at the end of it is like, that's not particularly scary. I just don't want to go back to scrolling through a 300-page agreement to find X.
No, absolutely. Ross, thank you so much for your time. That was absolutely brilliant. Thank you very much indeed.